What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we got a whole bunch of XFL rule news. If it's your first time here, hey, I'm glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back and thanks for watching more videos. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. Guys, we're continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow, and so please keep hitting that subscribe button, turn on that bell notification so you get notified of every one of the videos that come on out, because we're going to be having a lot of videos with a lot of content coming, so you don't want to miss out. Remember, leave me those comments down in the comment section, because you know that I will go ahead and I'll do a shout out to you guys if you give me some great comments. All right, let's not waste any time. We've got a lot of rule stuff to go over, but first and foremost, Dean Blandino. That's right, Dean Blandino has been named the head of officiating, and that is a very, very good thing. Why? Because he is a very smart, intelligent man that really knows his officiating and really does a very good job. And the reason why I know that is because I watch a lot of NFL on Fox, or I watch a lot of college football on Fox, and he has really been one of their officiating analysts, and so they kind of go to him, cut to him back in the studio whenever there's kind of this, they're going over reviewing calls and doing replay stuff, and he's definitely a guy that I really like, because he puts his opinion out there, and he doesn't kind of wait to shift it one way or another. He tells you like it is. He tells you if they blow the call. He tells you if they don't. And I really do appreciate that, especially in the landscape that we've been in for, I don't know, the past year or two with the NFL and college football. It's just been atrocious across the board, whether it be for your team or against your team. We've just had some really bad calls. And so to have a guy heading up the officiating like that, I think is really good. And a guy who is very, very familiar with both the college game and the pro game, because the fact of the matter is that the XFL, like we're going to see here in just a little bit, is that they are a blend of the rules of both of those leagues. And so for him to be very familiar with both of them, I think is top notch. I think it's great. And I just think it's a good thing. All around this is really, really a good fit for kind of both parties. He started out with really setting up the NFL's kind of their whole instant replay when they first started implementing instant replay in, and then he kind of moved over to the analyst realm, and that after kind of working in that realm in the NFL. So it just makes sense. He's got the accolades to do it. He's a very good official. It just makes sense. It's a really, really good hire here. Now, let's go ahead and let's move on to kind of some more officiating news as well. We found out today that they're gonna have 9 officials on the field, and they're actually gonna have an official on the field to spot the ball, to keep things moving quicker. And the whole idea behind a lot of this and the rules is more ball and less stall. And I really, really like that. I like the fact that they're really trying to keep the game continually moving, because that's one of the biggest complaints around football is that you play for a very short period of time, then you have a big rest period, and then the next play is very short period of time. Whereas we're going to get more and more movement with that, to where I think that that's an excellent thing that they've done here, is add a guy specifically just to set the ball, and his whole goal is to really just to make sure that they're ready to go for the next play. I think that's huge. The next thing with officiating is we found out they're going to be using Hawkeye technology for their instant replay. Don't know what that is, really don't know what that means. We just know that the replay system, all of the challenges, all the calls are going to be replayed in the booth. They're going to have 60 seconds to replay those, and to determine whether or not they're going to make a rule change from the booth, from the sky judge that they're having. But they're going to be using this Hawkeye technology that they've developed, that it's pretty much going to be their instant replay system that they're going to be using. So they're actually going to be infusing, pretty much game footage into their feed, and not just using their own personal feeds, which I think it'll be great. They'll be looking at the exact same thing that we will be looking at, from our our couches at home when we're watching the instant replay. So they're going to be looking at the exact same angles that we are and getting some great angles and views. And it seems like they've been kind of working with this technology for a while. So I think that's pretty cool. So all in all, I think it's good so far. Now, going to the rules, let's break them up because they broke them up into kind of 3 different areas with 5 different rules. And we're going to start off with the time-changing rules. What the XFL is trying to do is they're really trying to shorten the game to about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, or I'm sorry, 2 hours and 45 minutes, or somewhere they'd like to get to there, even less than that if they can. They're really trying to shoot for that 2.5 hours. But that's kind of where they're trying to shoot with this. And so what they've done is they've done this time changes and also some rule changes, but we're mainly focused on the time changes right now to take that and really try to make these changes so that the game goes faster, but also they're going to try to make it so that they're still getting, what you would normally get in a normal NFL game. So the same amount of plays, but in really less time. So with the first one of those, we got the 25-second play clock. So in the regular NFL and in college, you have a 40-second game clock. So they've only got 25 seconds. So they've implemented some things. Because of that, you're going to have the all of the position players with the headsets so that they can hear from the coaches, and also the defensive players they're going to have headsets and stuff as well, so they can keep things rolling with that, so that this 25-second clock doesn't really become a hindrance to them, and they can really get used to that. The second thing that they're going to have is that during the game they're going to be having a running clock all up into the 2-minute warning. I think this is great. I think that this is huge, and this is a very good plus for the league. It keeps things moving and running, and that really just adds into that 25-second clock. Because if they didn't have that 25-second clock, you would be surprised just how much of football we would be missing with the running clock. But doing that, I think that it's really good. Now, they've limited the timeouts to 2 timeouts. Why do they do that? Because they're going to have this comeback period, and we're going to talk about the comeback period here in a second. And so they're limiting it to 2 timeouts per half, 2 1-minute timeouts per half, and they're pretty much just saying that because of the comeback period, you don't need as many timeouts for play stoppage. Why? Because that's the comeback period. And this is kind of a whole new way of thinking. It kind of reminds me of basketball. You know how when the game gets going, especially if it's a close game, towards the end of the game, like that last half minute, or even really sometimes even down to like 15 seconds is really, really long. Well, we're going to start to see that. It's going to take a lot more time. Why? Because after the 2-minute warning, every play after that, the clock is going to stop. If it's an incomplete pass, the clock is going to stop. If the player runs out of bounds, it's going to stop. That's how it normally does with the NFL. But the thing that's going to change here with us is that we're actually going to, so with it's a running play and the player stopped within the field of play, what's going to happen is that the clock is actually going to stop there, and then they're going to get the ball reset. Now, once the ball is reset and the play clock has gone for longer than 5 seconds, then play will start back again. So we're actually getting some time for the players and the teams to set back up and get ready for a play. Where sometimes in the NFL, they'll run a play, but they won't even have enough time to get the ball set, and then the time will run out. So I think that this is good. It's going to allow for more plays to be ran during this time period, especially if they're used to that 25-second clock and they're used to, quick rapid fire with plays. I think that, it will actually, I think you're going to be surprised. I think you're going to get some back and forth, especially in those one-possession games. I think you're going to get definitely some more back and forth from these teams, to where those last 2 minutes you're not going to want to miss. And I think that they're going to be fun and exciting with that. So those, and then we've got the replay rules where, like I said, it was a 1-minute time limit to do replays, and everything's going to be done from the booth so that it's not going to be slowing down the game of play. So those are the 5 changes that they had. there. And let's go to the 5. They're calling them common sense rules. And again, these are things to really make the game faster, but not necessarily pushing the game faster, but to make the calls on plays and on things a whole lot easier. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, they're going to change the NFL. It means that you got to have 2 feet in play for it to be, ruled a catch, or an interception or that. Whereas with the XFL, they're going to do the college model with 1 foot. 1 foot's a lot easier for you to call. You only have to see where 1 foot is, and in that, so it's going to lend itself to be easier calls for these refs to keep the game moving and not have to figure out or make a bad call because they weren't in the correct angle for it. I think it's really good. They also made another point, which I think is pretty valid, that you kind of contort your body in different ways to try to get those second feet in, and sometimes people get hurt that way, to where it's just a lot easier to kind of have the 1 foot. There isn't that much that's there, and it does lend the wide receiver to be in kind of less precarious positions and a little bit more safe for them. Now, we've got the other thing is the ball spotting official, which we already talked about, the 9th official on the field, and their whole duty is just to spot the ball and to be ready to take the ball and go. And we talked about the player communication already, where they're going to have it in their helmets to keep the game rolling, and all of the position players are going to have it in their helmets, and then also the defensive side is going to have it to where they can communicate with the coach and get plays run off a whole lot quicker, which is really, really good. So one of the other things that they've done to common sense rule is just, again, adding to trying to shorten the game. What are they doing? They're cutting the halftime down. The halftime, which is usually a 20-minute clock that they have for the game, now is going to cut down to 10 minutes. So only 10 minutes in between the halves, which, again, cuts down that downtime and really gets people back into the action, and it takes less of your afternoon away, and you get right back to football. And really the players, they're warm, then they got to sit down, cool off, and then they got to get warm back again. Whereas in this, it's less time for them to have to really warm back up and get their bodies back moving again and ready to play. So I really do like the shorter halftime. I think that that's good. I think they do need a break, but they don't need as long of a break as what they have. Now, let's go ahead. This one's kind of the tough one, and it's going to need a little bit of explanation, but we've got the simplified illegal man downfield. What does that mean? Well, what's going to happen is they're saying that the offensive linemen, just passing plays, mind you, just passing plays, that they have 3 yards from the line of scrimmage to 3 yards out that they can go ahead and that they can block. That's going to help in calling all of these RPO plays where, the quarterback might hold on to the ball a little bit longer. And so now, a lineman is downfield, and then they call an illegal man downfield because he's, so far away from the field, from the line of scrimmage, and it's a hard one to kind of gauge. Why? Because in the NFL, what they have is the rule is that they can engage within 1 yard if they're engaged with a player and block, but they can't go really any further than that. So they've got kind of a 1 yard cushion that they can do on a pass play. That's what they can do in the NFL. So they have to be engaged with the player. Once they are unengaged with the player and they're past 1 yard, if they are still passing, then they're an ineligible receiver downfield. In college, it's a little bit more lenient than that, meaning that they have 1 yard, but they have to engage within 1 yard. So if they're past 1 yard, they're not engaged, then they're an illegal man downfield. The other aspect of this, though, is that they have 3 yard cushion to be engaged with the player. So as long as they're engaged blocking a player within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, they are okay and they're not an eligible receiver. As soon as they break away from that defender that they're blocking and are no longer blocking if they're past 1 yard, then they are considered an ineligible receiver. So they've got kind of a 3-yard cushion. What the XFL is doing is saying, hey, we're simplifying this. We're going to make it easy. They've got a 3-yard cushion. This will be an easy call to make, and so we can really get the refs have a better chance of really being able to pick up these calls and not miss them, which I think is a really, really good thing with that. And I really like these common sense rules. What they're really trying to do is simplify the game for the refs so that these are easy calls for them to make, and there's less subjective calls. I think all of you guys out there watching this video can agree with me that the more we can make it a hard-cut, easy call, the better, because it seems to be whenever it's a coin toss, it never goes the right way. It seems like the refs are always picking it wrong, especially in the NFL for the past couple seasons. It's just been atrocious and frustrating, and especially since you don't have replay in the NFL like you do in college ball. A lot of these they don't get right. So that's just kind of my thought process on all of it. I really do like that. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's move to what they're calling the 5 gameplay innovations. And this is where they're really changing the game of football and really trying to make it more of a fast-paced game that's more electrifying, more exciting to watch. And they're really trying to create more action on the field and try to make the game move quicker. And I think that it's going to be a really, really neat thing to where when we're done with this, I think next season when we start getting in the NFL, we're going to actually feel like the NFL game is slow and just cumbersome. And I think you'll actually might find some people kind of complaining about the NFL way of playing football after we get done watching a season of the XFL. Those are just my thoughts. But let's go and let's break into these 5 innovative gameplays. So first is the kickoff. Pretty much what they're doing is they're completely reinventing the whole way the kickoff is. So they're going to be kicking off from their own 25-yard line. Now, when they kick it off, the ball has to go in between the 20 and it has to go to at least the 20, and it has to go between the 20 and the end zone. And then that's where the receiver is going to be. The one receiver is going to be, and they're going to be there, and they're going to be able to catch the ball. Now, all the other 10 players for both of the teams are going to be lined up on, if you're the kicking team, you're on the 35-yard line of the receiving team. And if you're the receiving team, you're on your own 30-yard line. So they're going to be 5 yards apart. And then there needs to be 3 players on each side of the hash marks, on the outside of the hash marks, and then 4 players on the inside of the hash marks. And what this is doing is this is kind of trying to eliminate a lot of these violent hits that happen because the players are running at each other full speed on these kickoffs. So what happens is that the only people that can move before the receiver catches the ball or the ball hits the ground and has been on the ground for 3 seconds are the receiver and the kicker. Once the receiver receives the ball or that the ball's been on the ground for more than 3 seconds, the other 10 players can move, and the defensive players, which are the kicking team, now the defense, can try to then tackle the receiver, or the receiver then, obviously, they try to score a touchdown. This whole thing is really designed to really benefit kind of the receiving team and really bring back the kickoff, but in a way that's more player safe and more player friendly, which I think is pretty cool. Now, when we're looking at this, touchbacks in these instances, they're not going to want a touchback. Why? Because the team gets it on the 35. If they kick it out of bounds, the team gets it on the 35. So 35-yard line is pretty far up there. And if you think about it, if let's say they kick it to the 5 or the 10, guess what happens? They've got to run to get it to the 35. They've got to run, 30 yards, 20 yards, something like that. And that's quite a bit to do. So I think that this is kind of cool, innovative. We'll see how it works. Obviously, they've already tested all this stuff out in the spring league, and they came out and said that they were working with some junior college teams as well back in 2018, which was kind of an interesting thing to me. So I think that this is neat. Now, the point after try. There is no point after try for a kick. What they are going to do, though, are these conversions. And they're going to have the 3 different type of conversions. You're going to have your 1-point conversion, which was going to come from the 2-yard line. It's kind of like your old school normal 2-point conversion, but it's just going to be 1. And then you're going to have, at the 5-yard line, you're going to have a 2-point conversion. And then at the 10-yard line, you're going to have a 3-point conversion. What does this actually do? Well, this is actually going to kind of change the way that we think of a football game. Because the fact of the matter is that if you're down by 18 points in the fourth quarter, you're actually still only down by 2 scores, which is kind of crazy because you get 6 points for a touchdown. And if you go for 3 from the 10-yard line, now you're only down 9 points because you gain 9 points. So it really changes the whole landscape of the game. And it's really interesting to me because I'm really curious to see how teams are going to do this. If they're going to come out with these point afters, if they're going to just go for 1, even if they're, it's like the first quarter and they score on the first drive, are they going to come out and they're going to go for 1? They're going to go for 2? They're going to go for 3? It really is interesting, and it also adds a new dynamic to the whole football betting world and how they're going to kind of gauge all of this and the point spreads and things, because you can score 9 points within a possession, which is a real big swing even for football standards. So I think that that's really neat, and it's going to be something that we're going to need to kind of try to get a feel for as we go. I think it'll be interesting because as the season goes, I think you're going to see things evolve, that by the later part of the season, you're going to actually see them kind of working in, and you're going to kind of figure out, teams are going to figure out how things work. And so you're going to see tendencies and things that they're going to do to where I got a feeling like early on in the season, I think you're going to have teams that are going to play it safe. And I think that and are actually going to get hurt by that. And I think you're going to have teams that are going to take advantage of some of these rules. And I think that they're going to win some games early that maybe they should have lost, but because they were aggressive and took those chances, I think they're going to get some opportunities to earlier on. And then once the teams figure this stuff out, I think that you're going to find that it'll be interesting towards the end of the season, because then these will be really kind of, all right, what's the game plan here, and we'll be able to strategize with them and figure kind of some of the stuff out. So the punting game is going to be fairly similar, and it's going to look similar, but it's going to be a lot different. So there's kind of a couple things that we're going to start off with here. First, the punting game, so when the punter punts, and we have normally all of the guys who are gunning can go ahead and release. But what is actually going to happen here in the XFL is that once the ball's hiked, the players that are on the kicking team cannot run down the field until the ball is kicked. That's giving the player that's receiving the ball much more time to get the ball and then go ahead and make some plays to gain some yardage. Now, you can say, okay, well, can they still do a fair catch? Because you couldn't fair catch in the old XFL. You can in the new XFL. But really, it's not really something that you want to do. Why? Well, because if you do and you signal a fair catch, you're really not giving yourself an opportunity to get any yards, because the teams aren't going to be down and right upon the guy receiving the ball. Now, granted, he's still got to catch the ball. If he fumbles the ball, that's another story. But you're really losing an opportunity to gain yards because the players aren't going to be on you. So let's go ahead then and let's turn it back to the punting game, because there's some changes with that. They have what they're calling a major touchback. What this means is that we've already talked about that a touchback in the kickoff, they'll get the ball at the 35, and that's the same deal. So if you kick it out of the end zone, it's not going to the 20 or the 25, it's going to the 35. Now, if you kick the ball out of bounds, that's where it kind of gets interesting, because if you kick the ball out of bounds and it's between the 35 and the end zone, then that's automatically going to go out to the 35-yard line. Now, if the ball is kicked and it's a bad punt and they shank it, and let's say it goes out at the 40, well, then the team will get it at the 40. It's not going to be considered a 35-yard line touchback, but they're considering that a major touchback. That's what they're calling it, and I think that it's a really kind of a cool thing. And it's a neat thing. And I think what they're trying to do is two things. One, they're trying to help with the safety of the player, give the player an opportunity to make a play, so make another exciting play, but also incentivize it for the kicking team to actually go for it on fourth down rather than kick it. Why do I say that? Well, if you know if you're going to kick it, if you're close, let's say you're kicking from the 40-yard line, and you know that if your kicker doesn't kick it just right and it goes out of bounds or it goes a touchback, they get it at the 35-yard line. Well, why not just go for it on fourth and try to get the ball as opposed to the 30, having it on the 35-yard line because, hey, that's only 5 yards. So when we're looking at this, it's really not that big of a difference. It's a difference of 5 yards. And granted, yeah, you're kind of taking that game out of your kicker's foot, but you're kind of like, well, if you're kind of playing now this game of whether or not I should go or shouldn't go, because there's more incentive for you to go for it now, because really the difference is only, like I said in that scenario, about 5 yards. And really what's 5 yards between the 30 and the 40? Not much. So I think some of the coaches, like I said before, I think they're going to take advantage of this rule and really kind of benefit from it, especially earlier on. And I think you're going to start to see some trends develop as these rules become, easier to call and see what happens in these scenarios and that. I think we will adjust and the teams will adjust, but I think you're going to get some interesting stuff at the beginning of the season and some teams will take advantage of it. All right, now let's talk about the double forward pass. This one's pretty easy. So normal football, pretty much what it is that you can only do one forward pass on a play, period. That's it. Everything else has to be a lateral, which means you have to throw the ball behind wherever you are, and that the ball can only be thrown across the line of scrimmage or forward once. What they're saying is that you can have a double forward pass, which means you can throw the ball any way you want as long as the ball does not cross the line of scrimmage. Once the ball passes the line of scrimmage, everything has to be a lateral. But if it's behind the line of scrimmage, then, so if I look over and I throw the ball down to a wide receiver, like they normally do with those, wide receiver bubbles and things like that, that wide receiver can actually then turn around and throw the ball, even though he's ahead of the quarterback, which I think is going to make for two things. One, I think it's going to make for some exciting play. I think you're going to actually start to see two quarterbacks now on the field, especially if they got a guy who's an athletic quarterback. I'm looking at like a BJ Daniels type of a thing, and I think that that's going to be really slick, and it's going to be a neat thing, and to see how the RPO game is going to evolve from that. So I really like that. The second thing is it's going to make it a whole lot easier for these refs to call. They're not going to, be blowing the ball dead, or they're not going to worry about whether or not, was this a backwards pass? Was it not a backwards pass? They're not going to have to worry about that. It's just that the ball is, going to be a lot easier to see, identify with that, and it's just one thing less that they have to think about in the game, which is always a plus. And pretty much the last thing that they had was innovative, which is the overtime, and I love the way that they're doing the overtime. It's making it so much easier as opposed to all this convoluted mess of trying to get everybody a chance in the NFL, and really with college ball of running all these different plays and all this. Listen, it's like a shootout. It's like a hockey shootout, like a soccer shootout. Each team lines up at the 5-yard line, and you get one play to score. So if one team goes first, the other team goes second. If you score, you get 2 points. You get 5 tries. Whoever scores the most points in 5 tries wins the game. If it's tied after that, it's pretty simple, pretty easy. All you do is you go until one team scores and the other one doesn't, and then that team's the winner. Pretty much that's what it is. It's easy. It keeps, and also too, what it does is it keeps the best players out on the field, as opposed to all of these convoluted things with a lot of times with the overtime that, I know what the NFL is trying to do. They're trying to do that, but what's happening is it's kind of like there's this overtime strategy, and sometimes the best players never for your team never get back out on the field because something's already happened. Whereas this really gives each team a fair shot at the end of the game. I like it. Is it perfect? No. But is it good? I think that it's really, really good. And I think that it's going to be something that's going to be neat and exciting as we go on. So yeah, that was a long explanation for a lot of this stuff, but all in all, I think that the XFL has done a great job with all of their rules, with everything that they've come out with, and you can definitely tell that they've taken their time to create and innovate and reinvent in their own terms football, and it really shows. And I think that it's going to be something that's going to be really neat, and I'm really curious to see what the NFL is actually going to steal from this. And hey, let's go ahead and let's make that a question. Tell me down in the comment section, what do you think out of all of these rules are going to be the number one rule that you think that the NFL is going to steal from the XFL? Because I can guarantee you that they're going to steal at least one thing from them. So I want to hear it down in the comment section. All right, guys. Well, I know that you're busy and know that I'm busy. So let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.